Today, we will go in depth about the steps we took to create a fully functioning system for our clients, the Athens Area Habitat for Humanity. We will begin by looking at our business perspectives and seeing how our work affected their organization. Brandon will then take a closer look at the user profiles anticipated to interact with the developed system and discuss how the system meets their business goals. Next, Michael will focus on the functionality of the system and how each of the fragments align with one another. After that, Grayson will highlight the analysis and design techniques used, focusing specifically on the domain class diagram, business process diagram, and activity diagram. Then, we will shift gears and have Michael show us the demos that will showcase these functionalities. Finally, Milan will close us out with an overview of our project evaluation and retrospective. Our team was asked to create a customer relationship management system to replace their previous one, DonorView. Aside from not being very user-friendly, DonorView required a considerable amount of capital for basic operational costs. Our goal was to create a system that met our clients' needs, such as creating and managing constituent data, generating reports, and creating customizable objects and fields. Ultimately, our team wanted to decrease the amount of manpower needed to create, edit, and update system information in order to provide them with more bandwidth to cater to other organizational needs, increase overall productivity, and overall business accuracy. Now, Brandon will talk about how the system will benefit the user specifically.
Thank you, Juliana. As you can see from the chart in the right corner, the major stakeholders of this new system range from volunteers to employees of the Athens Area Habitat for Humanity. Now, even though there are multiple stakeholders, the only users of this system will be various internal employees at the Athens Area Habitat for Humanity, specifically Paul Farr and Brad Turner. Paul and Brad will be the ones directly assessing the system and using it to perform their functions. They have a vested interest in the system's functionality and performance because it affects their ability to do their jobs well and provide value to the organization. Our main goal was to get the input from the users of the new system. So if you look at the diagram at the right corner, it would be that green circle, which would be the various employees of the Athens Area Habitat for Humanity, specifically Paul and Brad. After our initial conversation with Paul and Brad, we were able to understand their goals and requirements for the new system. Looking below the diagram would be the goal for each of the users. Paul's main goal was for more communication preferences with constituents and the creation of more custom reports in Salesforce, while Brad's goal would be more data-focused in how he was able to read and update the constituent data. And now I'm going to pass it on to Michael, who would talk about the system's functionality.
Thank you, Brandon. So as you said, I'll be covering our system functionality. And so during our sprints, we created custom objects of affiliation, address, constituent, household, account, and organization. And then we connected all of these within a database schema in Salesforce. And then after creating these objects, we are able to manage them, edit, create new ones, as well as create reports on actually all 5 of these objects, which is even more than the use cases that are presented on our slide right now. An important non-functional requirement was security. We had a bit of a mishap during Sprint 2, where created and modified by were not auto-generated by Salesforce, which would be bad for any audits into who was the last to edit data, because then they could change who was in there. But we fixed that in Sprint 3, and then for something we didn't account for was to make a clearer homepage and potential customers to better navigate, but that's something that could be covered in future sprints. And I'll be passing off to Grayson to talk about analysis, design, and techniques.
Thank you, Michael. I'm now going to go into our analysis and design techniques that we've used throughout this semester. To start off, as you can see here, we have the domain class diagram. This shows some of the classes that we have implemented within the Salesforce system and the attributes that each class has, as well as the relationships between each. And this has been very important for us to use, especially towards the latter end of the semester, because when we're trying to implement, for example, the managed constituent use case within Salesforce, if you don't know how the constituent relates to affiliation or relates to address, you're going to run into problems later down the road with the system, because a constituent, as you can see, has one-to-many addresses, and that's important to know when a constituent's trying to enter their address. And so this has helped us a lot in the implementation phase of working with Salesforce. Moving on, here is our business process diagram that we created for when employees such as Brad and Paul receive new constituent information. all the way through when they log out of the system. And as you can see at the bottom, the constituent swim lane, when the donor sends in money, for example, or a vendor sends in materials, it feeds into the business process where the employees, Brad and Paul, can process those donations, acquire materials, and update information as needed before logging out until another request is initiated. Lastly, as you can see here, is an activity diagram. This is for the cancel order use case, which is separate from what we have been doing with this current project, but it showcases how the customer interacts with the system and how the system responds when a customer initiates a request, such as clicking cancel order. The system will have to respond to that request and then send something back, and the customer will do something. Now I'm going to pass it off to Michael to go into our demo.
For the start of this demo, I'll be showing how to add a constituent, and then after adding an affiliation with that constituent. So this functionality of creating a new constituent is also possible with our creating new household accounts, organizations, affiliations, or addresses, and they work the same way as they're also custom created objects. And then once the new constituent is created, you also have the option of editing anything that was put in by clicking the top right and changing any of that inputted information. And now I'll be adding an affiliation with this new constituent with an organization that I've already created called UGA. Now that the affiliation is made, we're going to create an address for this new constituent. For the second part of this demo, we knew it was important for Habitat for Humanity to create reports, so we'll be showing how to create reports, one being just a constituent report. And then for the second report, we're going to make one using household accounts, as well as adding a filter onto it where we look at houses with more than 2 people living in them. And that's our demonstration.
Thank you, Michael, for that lovely demo. I'm now going to be talking about the project evaluation. We were really proud to have delivered an organized, efficient, and user-friendly application with the most important features for our users. We had functionalities such as creating new objects, editing existing ones, and generating reports that are not only fully functional, but should be easy to learn and use for our clients. We delivered all of the use cases associated with the must-have requirements, and then the other requirements were considered things that we should have or could have done. However, these were not completed because of the time constraints on this project. If we were not amidst a global pandemic and we had more time to work, we would have liked to deliver more of these features. Other things we'd like to fix would be the aesthetics and layout of the home page. We'd like to improve the accessibility and easy use of this page. However, due to the prevalent usage of custom objects, there were some default items that we could not remove and custom items we could not make lists of. We'd like to change this as well. In retrospect, if given the opportunity to do this project again, we'd have increased our usage of default objects in Salesforce. While custom objects provide greater flexibility, they also sometimes overcomplicated our workload and lack certain default functionalities that would be difficult to replicate. We'd also utilize the built-in nonprofit function as opposed to generating these features from scratch. Looking back on our project, one of the things we took away was the importance of having clearly defined requirements. Upon the start of this project, we were provided with documentation that explained what our client hoped to achieve. However, that alone was not enough to guide their team. We benefited immensely from asking our client questions and from the guidance of our product owner. After clarifying the requirements, we were fortunate enough to have a relatively constant expectation for what to do throughout the duration of this project. However, we were faced with added time constraints. We lost 2 weeks of time due to work on our project due to COVID-19, and our scope was reduced accordingly in order to maximize the quality and value of our project. It was a great learning experience in terms of how to adjust other constraints in accordance with one that must change. One of the greatest challenges for this project was simply learning a new system. Salesforce is not exactly intuitive, and it took many hours of training before we would be able to create any sort of value for our client. We'd like to stress the importance of having that technical knowledge before learning about what the client wants. This helps you ask the right questions and make the right choices in terms of scope and technical feasibility. One thing that made working on this project go exponentially smoother was the ease of our team dynamics. We all respected one another and saw the value in not only supporting our own weight in the project, but each other as needed. We were flexible, adapted when hurdles were thrown our way, and maintained frequent communication and uplifting words. It truly was a team effort, and the spirit and energy our team had made the work fun. We held ourselves and each other accountable while also being understanding of our varying schedules. Even as we transferred to working from home, we found a way to make working remote not only as productive, but enjoyable. We all had a shared understanding of the quality we wanted to deliver and the passion to bring the final deliverable there. Next time around, we'd probably increase the number of hands-on developers. This would allow for greater technical support if our lead developer hit a hurdle and would allow for a more even distribution of work inside of Salesforce.